A handshake in Washington, but tension beneath the surface. As President Trump and Japan's Prime Minister Ishiba vows to stand against China's aggression and looming trade disputes threatening to test their newfound partnership. Is this a breakthrough or the calm before the storm? Well, this and many more we will be detailed in today's Flash News. Good afternoon and welcome. I am Tabitha Ako. Let's begin. In a high-profile meeting at the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening bilateral relations while addressing shared concerns over China's growing influence. While the leaders projected unity, underlining tensions over trade and economic policy signaled that negotiations between Washington and Tokyo remain delicate. President Trump, while emphasizing his administration's America First trade policies, urged Ishiba to reduce Japanese trade surplus with the U.S. to zero, warning that failure to do so could result in future tariffs. Although Japan has so far avoided the economic penalties imposed on other U.S. allies, the possibility of tariffs on Japanese exports remains an open threat. The issue of trade deficit has long been a point of contention in U.S.-Japan relations, with Trump making it clear that his administration expects Japan to take concrete steps toward balancing the trade equation. Well, despite this pressure, the two leaders found common ground on strategic matters, particularly their opposition to what they called China's economic aggression. In a joint statement, they condemned Beijing's activities in the South China Sea and reaffirmed their commitment to countering China's expanding influence in global trade and security. Additionally, Trump and Ishiba emphasized their shared goal of a denuclearized North Korea, with Trump reiterating his willingness to maintain diplomatic relations with Pyongyang. The economic front also saw a notable development as Trump announced that Japan's Nippon Steel would invest in U.S. steel rather than proceed with an outright acquisition deal that had been blocked by the previous Biden administration. This adjustment allowed both leaders to claim a win, with Trump securing foreign investment while Ishiba preserved Japan's corporate interest in U.S. markets. Take a look.
80 years, the American-Japanese people have enjoyed a friendship like few others. We've had a great friendship across the vast ocean and found ourselves united by bonds of history, commerce, culture, mutual admiration, and great respect. After our meeting today, I'm confident that the cherished alliances between our two countries and others also. And I'm pleased to say that this week my administration approved nearly $1 billion in military to Tokyo. The United States is totally committed to the security of Japan. We will extend the full strength of American deterrence capabilities in defense of our friend and ally. Prime Minister Ishiba and I spoke long and hard about a vital economic relationship between our two countries and the continuance of that relationship. The United States and Japan trade over.
Wow, a progressive one that was, and a win for both leaders. Looking at the moment together, Prime Minister Ishiba is known for his reserved demeanor and military expertise. He faced the challenge of navigating relations with Trump while stepping out of the shadow of his predecessor, Shinzo Abe. The former prime minister shared a famously close relationship with Trump, reinforced by personal gestures such as gifting him a gold-plated golf club and fostering a friendship over multiple visits. Ishiba's approach, while diplomatic, has yet to replicate the warmth of the Abe-Trump dynamic. Still on the report, Japan, the largest foreign investor in the U.S., pledged to increase spending and expand its purchases of American defense equipment. This move is seen as an effort to maintain stability in U.S.-Japan relations while insulating Tokyo from southern trade policy shifts. However, concerns remain over whether Trump's transactional approach to alliances could lead to future economic demands on Japan, similar to those placed on NATO allies regarding defense spending. While the meeting underscores the strategic alignment between the two nations, it is also highlighted potential economic friction. Trump's history of imposing tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada, alongside his recent threat against the European Union, suggests that Japan's current exemption may not be permanent. His upcoming announcement on reciprocal tariffs next week could further reshape the global trade landscape, leaving Japan in a precarious position as it seeks to balance economic cooperation with the U.S. against the risks of potential trade restrictions. As both leaders navigate a shifting geopolitical environment, the future of U.S.-Japan relations will hinge on whether Tokyo can maintain its strategic alliance with Washington while avoiding the economic pitfalls that have strained America's ties with other global partners. Moving on, in a report concerning the recent plane crash in Alaska, a tragic plane crash in Alaska has claimed the lives of all 10 people aboard, reigniting concerns over aviation safety as investigators work to determine what went wrong. The small commuter aircraft, a Cessna 208B Grand Caravan operated by Brewing Air, disappeared on Thursday afternoon while flying from Undaunted to Loom. The wreckage was discovered Friday, 34 miles southeast of Loom, confirming fears that none of the passengers or crew survived. Pathetic. Rescue teams found the aircraft shattered across the snowy terrain. Coast Guard swimmers identified 3 bodies inside the wreckage, while the remaining 7 victims are believed to be trapped, making recovery efforts difficult. Among those lost were 2 employees of the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, Fun Womingnat and Cameron Hadvigsen, who had been on a mission to repair a vital heat recovery system in a remote community. Authorities say the plane experienced a sudden loss of altitude and speed just before disappearing from radar. One of the biggest concerns in investigation is the failure of the aircraft's emergency locator transmitter, which is designed to send distress signals when a crash occurs. No such signal was received, delaying search and rescue operations. Investigators are now working to determine whether this was due to equipment failure, environmental interference, or other technical issues. The research for the missing plane was hampered by harsh winter conditions, including snowfall, freezing drizzle, and poor visibility. Initially, air reconnaissance teams struggled to locate the wreckage, and it was only after conditions improved that the Coast Guard and National Guard were able to conduct a full-scale search. The FBI has also joined the investigation, using geolocation tracking to pinpoint the aircraft's last known position. So this happening. Well, this incident comes amid heightened concerns over U.S. air safety following 2 other fatal aviation disasters in recent days. If we could remember, on January 29th, a mid-air coalition between U.S. military Black Hawk helicopter and a passenger jet near Washington, D.C. resulted in 67 deaths. 2 days later, on January 31st, a medevac jet crashed in Philadelphia, killing 7. These back-to-back tragedies have intensified calls for stronger oversight of aviation safety, particularly for small regional flights operating in extreme weather conditions. Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy expressed his condolences, urging residents to support the grieving families while praising the tireless efforts of the search and rescue teams. The Federal Aviation Administration has deployed investigators to examine whether the crash was caused by mechanical failure, pilot error, or severe weather conditions. As authorities continue their investigation, The crash raises pressing questions about the reliability of emergency equipment and the challenges of flying in Alaska's harsh climate. With growing concerns over air travel safety, aviation experts are calling for a closer look at existing protocols to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Moving over to a recent report, in Bangladesh is experiencing a surge of unrest, as thousands of protesters attacked and demolished the family home of exiled former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in Dhaka. The property, once the residence of Bangladesh independence, had long been a symbol of country's liberation from Pakistan in 1971. However, for many demonstrators, it now represents the authoritarian rule they claim Hasina upheld during her 15-year tenure. The attack was triggered by Hasina's speech from exile in India, where she led last year following a student-led uprising that led to her removal from office. Critics accused her of suppressing dissent and orchestrating human rights abuses, while her supporters argue that the current interim government has seized power through unconstitutional means. As she addressed her party members remotely, protesters stormed the building, dismantling its walls before bringing in heavy machinery to complete the demolition. The destruction of Hasina's family home is just one of several attacks targeting symbols associated with her government. Since her departure, her supporters have attempted to rally at key sites, only to face violent resistance from opposing groups, businesses and residents linked to the Awami League. Her political party have also been ransacked or set on fire. Protesters chanted slogans calling for her execution, blaming her for the death of hundreds during last year's unrest. Moving on, the escalating violence has intensified the political divide in Bangladesh. The interim government, led by Nobel Peace Laureate Muhammad Yunus, has been working to maintain order but has struggled to control the public outcry against Hasina and her allies. Meanwhile, the Awami League has accused Yunus' administration of human rights violations, particularly against party members and journalists. Reports of arbitrary arrest and intimidation tactics have fueled concerns about the government's approval and approach to dissent. International human rights organizations have taken notice, with Human Rights Watch highlighting a pattern of abuse that has re-emerged since Hasina's outsing. A recent report revealed that law enforcement agencies have resorted to mass detentions and politically motivated charges against opposition figures, further deepening fears of a crackdown on political freedoms. Well, the crisis is also straining Bangladesh diplomatic relations. Hasina's supporters have accused India of harboring her, while the interim government has sought her contradiction, a request that India has so far ignored. The political uncertainty has raised concerns about Bangladesh's stability, with fears that the ongoing violence could escalate into broader conflict. As tensions continue to rise, the nation stands at a crossroads. While Hasina's opponents celebrate what they see as the removal of a corrupt and authoritarian leader, her supporters argue that the current administration is no better. The destruction of her family home is more than just an act of protest. It is a powerful statement about Bangladesh's unresolved political wounds and the deep divisions that continue to shape its future. Coming to the climax of this report, we are looking at these stories closely. But until next time, this is where we'll be drawing the curtain on today's flash news. Remember, we'll be bringing you untold stories and more that will be discussed this evening with Tapa the King on your usual show, Ambazonia, this week. It is important to remind you that on Monday, a 3-day nationwide lockdown commences, all in a bid to ensure the 11th of February that the colonial administration has coined a Youth Day, which the people of Southern Cameroon consider as fraud, will not be celebrated in Ambazonia. Until then, do have a pleasant day and stay safe.